We are witnessing a true earthquake at the heart of global finance. Jerome Powell, the man behind the wheel of the U.S. economy, has officially been summoned by the Department of Justice for a criminal investigation. The charge isn't about policy, it's about the transparency of $3 billion. What the financial world feared most in 2026 has finally happened. A federal grand jury subpoena was delivered straight to the Fed's doorstep. Jerome Powell struck back immediately, calling it a political theater designed to strip the central bank of its independence. But what is the truth behind the headquarters renovation project dubbed the Marble Palace? Is this a case of massive budget waste, or just a perfect excuse to remove a man who refuses to play ball in the interest rate war? In today's video, we aren't talking about sensationalist conspiracy theories. Instead, we'll deconstruct economic laws to understand where faith in the US dollar goes. Before we dive into the power plays, we need to understand, why has an institution as secretive and untouchable as the Fed suddenly fallen into the crosshairs of federal prosecutors? It all exploded this Monday morning, January 12, 2026. The U.S. Department of Justice, led by the D.C. Prosecutor's Office, took a step that no Fed chair in history has ever faced: a formal criminal inquiry. Now, it is crucial to note that legally, receiving a subpoena or being investigated does not mean Jerome Powell is a criminal. This is a process to verify if the Fed's reports to Congress match their actual spending. In response to this offensive, Powell chose a remarkably direct rebuttal. Eschewing dry press releases, he released a video statement claiming the allegations of misconduct in the renovation project are merely a pretext. Looking straight into the camera, Powell asserted that this threat of prosecution is the direct result of political pressure. Powell asserted that the Fed's refusal to cut interest rates at the government's whim is the real reason for this investigation. This is the heart of the matter, a collision between law enforcement and the independence of a financial institution. On the market side, you can see Treasury yields fluctuating wildly. Investors aren't afraid of Jerome Powell going to prison. They are afraid of institutional risk. In economics, when the monetary steersman is caught in a web of litigation, the ability to make objective, data-driven decisions is compromised. There is a fear that the Fed will be distracted between taming inflation and defending the personal reputation of its leadership. Therefore, we must view this event as a trial for the American system of checks and balances. Jerome Powell is currently acting as both a witness and the final guardian of the principle that the central bank must remain above politics. If he can prove transparency, the Fed emerges stronger. And the specific fuse that ignited this storm is the Mariner S. Eccles headquarters. People are calling it the Marble Palace, a project seen as a symbol of luxury and lack of control. So, what is actually inside this $3 billion building? Let's talk about the name dominating the headlines: Marble Gate, or the Marble Palace case. The renovation of the Mariner S. Eccles and East buildings began in 2022 with an initial estimate of around $1.9 billion. But by early 2026, government reports alleged the figure had ballooned to over $3.1 billion. Why such a massive discrepancy? Critics, led by White House advisors, claim the Fed has been far too extravagant. They point to allegations of rooftop gardens, VIP dining rooms, and tons of rare marble imported just to serve the financial elite. However, if we look at it from a technical and construction economic perspective, the story is quite different. The Fed responded differently. The Fed responded that this is the first comprehensive overhaul in nearly 100 years. These buildings date back to the 1930s, and removing asbestos, lead, and reinforcing foundations amidst Washington's changing water table is an incredibly costly endeavor. Furthermore, we cannot ignore the factor of construction inflation between 2021 and 2023. Prices for structural steel and specialized labor skyrocketed. Most importantly, to turn a classical building into a quantum-secure fortress capable of resisting cyber attacks and ensuring absolute communication security for the global financial system, the cost of underground infrastructure is immense. The Fed argues they aren't building a palace. They are building strategic infrastructure to protect the USD in the digital age. So is $3 billion a waste or an essential investment? That is the question the grand jury is seeking to answer. What we should care about isn't a few marble slabs, but the efficiency of public capital. If the Fed proves cost overrun was objective, the allegations collapse. We are witnessing a true earthquake at the heart of global finance. Jerome Powell, the man behind the wheel of the U.S. economy, has officially been summoned by the Department of Justice for a criminal investigation. The charge isn't about policy, it's about the transparency of $3 billion. What the financial world feared most in 2026 has finally happened. A federal grand jury subpoena was delivered straight to the Fed's doorstep. Jerome Powell struck back immediately, calling it a political theater designed to strip the central bank of its independence. But what is the truth behind the headquarters renovation project dubbed the Marble Palace? Is this a case of massive budget waste, or just a perfect excuse to remove a man who refuses to play ball in the interest rate war? In today's video, we aren't talking about sensationalist conspiracy theories. Instead, we'll deconstruct economic laws to understand where faith in the US dollar goes. Even if every cost can be accounted for, why is the administration so determined to push this case so far? To understand, we have to step out of the marble building and look at a far more brutal power play, the interest rate war. By now, many of you are wondering, why are they digging up the building case right now? Throughout 2025 and into early 2026, a smoldering war has taken place between Jerome Powell and President Trump. The White House has consistently pressured the Fed to cut rates quickly to stimulate the real estate and manufacturing markets. Trump needs the money printer at full capacity to deliver on his economic promises, while Powell remains stubborn, keeping rates high to ensure the ghost of inflation doesn't return. In political economy, there is a concept called the political business cycle. Politicians often want to loosen monetary policy before major elections so that citizens feel more affluent. Politicians often want to loosen monetary policy before major elections so that citizens feel more affluent. But the Fed's job is the opposite. They are supposed to be the person who takes away the punch bowl just when the party is getting good to prevent the economy from overheating. This independence is what made Jerome Powell a major obstacle to the administration's plans. The $3 billion case is a form of soft power to exert pressure. If you can't fire the Fed chair for policy reasons, which is illegal, the best way is to attack his personal reputation. By using the Marble Palace investigation, proponents of lower interest rates have a massive lever to force Powell to concede. What is the biggest risk here? It's the market starting to believe that monetary decisions are no longer based on inflation data, but on political pressure. If this belief spreads, the predictability of the U.S. economy disappears. Powell is fighting for currency independence. Jerome Powell is currently fighting not just for his seat, but for the principle that currency must remain separate from the ballot box. And if this final barrier collapses, what will happen to our wallets? Where will the U.S. dollar, the symbol of American strength, go if the Fed can no longer maintain its independence? In summary, the Jerome Powell case and the $3 billion project is not the end of the U.S. dollar, but it is a cleansing of trust. We need to understand that the strength of the USD lies not just in gold vaults or missiles, but in the transparency of the institutions that create it. The fact that a Fed chair is being investigated actually shows that the American oversight system is still functioning and that no one is above the law, even the man who holds the keys to the money printer. This process will ultimately lead to a risk repricing. The upcoming consequence will not be a flight from the USD, but a process of risk repricing. Investors will closely watch every development in court. If the investigation is fair and Powell accounts for every cent, faith in the system will be reinforced. Conversely, if this truly is just a political punishment, then the world will have to start seriously looking for alternative assets to protect itself. As we end this video, I want to hear your thoughts. Do you believe in Jerome Powell's transparency, or do you think the Fed truly needs a radical overhaul? Does the Marble Palace symbolize a waste of tax dollars, or is it a necessary defense for the digital age? Leave your comments down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of global finance. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.